The wind crawled across the plains like a wounded beast, dragging dust, dry grass, and the memories of a land that had buried too many hopes. On the edge of that merciless frontier stood a crooked cabin, half worn by storms but bravely intact, much like the woman living inside it. Ilara Hayes, the lonely widow of a ranch hand who had died 2 winters ago, had learned to carry silence the way others carried rifles. Every morning she stepped out, fed her livestock, mended what was breaking, and prayed the world would not ask more of her than she had left. But the world rarely listened. For weeks now, a group of outlaws, renegades drifting between the territories, had been circling her land, eyeing her ranch like wolves waiting for the first sign of weakness. They had tried intimidation first, whispers at the trading post, footprints around her barn, a stolen calf. Then, a few nights ago, they made their intentions clearer with a burned fence post and a message carved in crude letters, "This land ain't yours anymore." Ilara felt terror digging its claws into her ribs, but she also felt the anger of a woman who'd already lost too much to let the world take more. She tried to stand firm, even though she knew the coming storm was far bigger than she was. And then fate, wild and unpredictable as the frontier itself, sent help in a form she never saw coming. On a cold morning, while leading her mare to the creek, she found a man collapsed in the brush, taller than any man she'd ever seen, blood trickling down his shoulder, arrows broken beside him. His skin held the sun, his hair was long and black as a raven's wing, and his breath came in shallow bursts. She knew instantly he was Apache, and not just any Apache. His size, his markings, the carved medicine piece around his neck, told her he was a warrior of high standing. She hesitated only a heartbeat. Whatever trouble he carried, he was still a man dying on her land. With all the strength she had, she dragged him to her cabin, patched his wounds, fed him broth, and kept watch through the long night. When he awoke, the firelight painted him like a myth come alive. His eyes, dark, sharp, aware, studied her with a mix of confusion and quiet respect. "You saved me," he said in a deep, steady voice. "I repay all debts." She shook her head. "You don't owe me anything. Just rest and heal. Then go your way." He stared at her for a long moment, as if seeing through the thin armor she wore around her heart. "My name is Kalen," he said, "son of White Hawk, warrior of the Red Mesa. I do not run from danger, but I was ambushed by men who have no honor. They chase what they think they can take." Ilara felt her breath falter. Men who take, men without honor. Men like the ones threatening her ranch. When she told him about the outlaws circling her land, something fierce sparked in his eyes. He stood, towering over her even with a bandaged shoulder, his presence filling the small cabin like a rising storm. "They will not touch what you protect," he said. "They will not set foot on your land again." She tried to protest, but he lifted a hand. "By winter, you'll have my protection. My strength will stand between you and every threat. This I vow." Ilara felt her chest tighten, not from fear, but from the weight of an oath spoken with the full force of a warrior's spirit. She had lived alone for so long, she had forgotten what it felt like for someone to stand with her, to say she mattered, that her life was worth defending. Kalen's voice softened. "You gave me back my life. Now I give you back your peace." In that moment, something ancient and unspoken rose between them, not romance, not yet, but a bond forged in survival, honor, and the quiet recognition of 2 souls who had been walking alone for far too long. Outside, thunder growled behind distant hills. Inside, for the first time in months, Ilara didn't feel alone. "Stay," she whispered before she could stop herself. Kalen bowed his head slightly, a warrior's promise sealing the air. "I stay." And as the storm rolled in, Ilara felt the first spark of hope warming the frozen corners of her heart. If you're enjoying this story, make sure to subscribe to the channel so you don't miss Chapter 2. Kalen healed quickly. Too quickly for a normal man, Ilara thought, though she kept that wonder to herself as she watched him move with the silent precision of someone born to survive. Each day he regained more strength, and each day he took on more of the ranch work as though it were his duty, not hers. He repaired broken fences with hands capable of gentleness despite their size. He taught Ilara how to track footprints, how to listen for threats in the wind, how to sense danger before it stepped into the open, and though he rarely spoke of his own past, she began to notice things, moments when his eyes drifted to the horizon, when his jaw tightened at distant echoes, when he stood guard outside her cabin long after the stars took the sky. Without asking, he had become her shield, and without wanting to admit it, she felt safer with him than she had in years. But safety was fragile, and the outlaws were impatient. One moonless night, the ranch awoke to the thunder of horses and drunken whoops. Flames licked the edge of the barn as 3 men circled the yard, shooting into the air, confident she would break easily. Alara rushed outside, fear clawing at her throat, but she did not find helplessness waiting in the dark. She found Kalen. He stepped out from the shadows like a spirit of war, towering, unshaken, his presence alone enough to freeze the men mid-laugh. "This land is under my protection," he called out, voice carrying the weight of mountains. "Leave now and live." The outlaws scoffed, not understanding what kind of man they were confronting. One fired a warning shot. The next second, he was on the ground, disarmed, staring up at Kalen with the terror of a man who had finally realized he'd provoked the wrong kind of storm. The others fled, fear spilling behind them like dust trails, leaving their leader in Kalen's iron grip. "Tell your pack," Kalen growled, "that this woman is not alone." The outlaw nodded so violently his hat fell off. He scrambled back onto his horse and vanished into the night. When the danger faded, Alara felt her knees weaken. Kalen turned to her, his voice suddenly soft, as though switching from warrior to guardian required nothing more than a breath. "You are safe," he whispered, stepping closer. "As long as I stand, no harm will reach you." She tried to thank him, but emotion tangled her words. For the first time, she saw something else in his eyes, not just duty or honor, but a deep, unspoken admiration, a connection, a warmth. Winter crept closer with each passing day, and with it came a subtle shift between them. They shared meals by the fire. They talked late into the night about loss, hope, and the strange ways destiny ties 2 lives together. Alara found herself laughing again, something she hadn't done since before her husband died. And Kalen, in his quiet, unwavering way, seemed to find a place on her ranch that belonged to him as surely as the sky belonged to the plains. One evening, as snowflakes drifted lazily outside, Kalen stepped toward her, his height casting a shadow that wrapped her like a protective cloak. "I made you a vow," he said softly. "By winter you would have my protection." She nodded. "And you've kept it." "No," he said, brushing a strand of hair from her face with surprising tenderness. "I have given more." Her breath caught. "What do you mean?" Kalen's voice held both strength and vulnerability. "You have healed parts of me I thought lost. You gave a warrior a home when he had none. You gave me a reason to stay when the world wanted me gone. My protection was a vow, but what grew from it, that was something neither of us expected." Alara felt her heart tremble, not in fear, but in recognition of something real, something powerful, something earned through courage, loyalty, and shared loneliness. She reached for his hand. "Then stay," she whispered, "not out of duty, out of choice." His answer came not in words, but in the soft, reverent way he lowered his forehead to hers, the gesture of his people, a promise deeper than any spoken vow. Outside, winter finally arrived, covering the land in white. Inside, the lonely widow and the giant Apache stood side by side, not as protector and protected, but as 2 hearts learning to hope again. And that winter, for the first time in years, Alara felt her world warming instead of freezing. If you want more powerful frontier stories like this, don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Your support helps keep these tales alive.